I think he said, I have a lot of experience. I do have experience, but I have learned that in mediumship, as well as in spiritism, the more you learn, the less you know. There is always something else to learn. So we are going to talk about mediumship. And to begin with, I would like to point out to you that we are going to talk about mediumship. My talk is directed, really, under the perspective of spiritist mediumship, because a medium doesn't need to be a spiritist, but we talk about mediumship under the perspective of how spiritism sees it. So, to begin with, the theme of our talk is how do I recognize spiritual abilities and how do I develop it safely, taking note of the good and bad influences. To be able to answer this question, we need to first know what mediumship is. So we're going to have an overall view of that first. That's like a lotus flower. So what is mediumship? Mediumship is known throughout the ages. It was in the oldest temples in Mesopotamia, in Babylon, in Egypt. Was very well known in Greece, with the most important place, the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, with the oracle. And it's good sometimes to understand that the oracle was the person, was the woman who was inside it, not the temple itself. And also in Rome, with the Sibyls, they were called Sibyls, and we have the cult of the ancestors in Africa, and in South America we have the shamans. So mediumship has always been there in the Middle Ages with the soothsayers, but I think it came on its own in Christianity, with Jesus representing being the medium of God. And if we read the Bible, we have lots and lots of examples of mediumship. In the dreams of Joseph, were premonition dreams with his mediumship. And there's so many different others. Jacob's ladder, his dream. So we see it all the time. But in Christianity, we see Jesus, and I have a photo that I will show you. Also, this is what I pointed. Also, there are many stories. I think Plutarch tells a story of Brutus, who met one of his dead enemies, you know, someone he had killed. Nero also is being told that just before he died, he used to see his mother and his wife, whom he had then both murdered. And they used to persecute him all the time. He used to go half crazy with that. And even Caligula as well. So much so around his tomb that they had to actually take his body away and burn it, because people could see spirits all around there. So mediumship is known, very, very much so. But in Spiritism, we have a proper explanation. It has taken it out of the realm of the paranormal, the different, and come into a scientific explanation of what mediumship is. So if you see there, the first thing is mediumship is a faculty that's inherent to man. Everyone who is in any sense influenced by a spirit is a medium. So it means all of us. And although rudiments of spirit mediumship can be found in everyone, because all of us have it, in some people it's more open, is what we call ostensive mediumship, which and we're going to explain the difference there. And this is in question 159 of the Spirit's book. And there's a lot more explanation of that. We don't have time, because we could be here for 3-4 days talking about the subject, but I won't bore you with that. So, mediumship is so including. It doesn't matter your color, your religion, your social class. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you believe in God, if you don't, if you have mediumships there. It's biological. It's part of a physical body. So whether we believe it or not, we can be mediums anyway. And also, I think one of the most important things about that Spiritism explaining mediumship is that it took it as out of is a privilege of you, and that you're a very special person and you're different from everybody else and you have a gift. Although mediumship is a gift, it's not a gift that makes you different from anybody else. It's a gift in the sense that you're having in the incarnation a little bit more to work with, to clear some of our backlog in the past. So that's why it is a gift, but not because you're better than anybody else. Also, if you read that, and it's no longer for initiate, because, you know, as in the temples, they were only for a very few people. Even the shamans in South America, for instance, in Peru, they take the children when they're very, very small. If they notice that they have mediumship abilities, they go and live with the shamans. And it takes like 60 years to train to be a shaman, because it became really sort of popular. But the real shamans who live in those tribes in the Amazon and everything, they are trained for a very, very long time. And so, in a way, just few people who are. But in Spiritism, we all are, and we can all be. So, let's... I think I'll talk about this. Although all of us have some part of mediumship, what she says there is that is the term usually is used for people who actually have ostensive mediumship. And we're going to go through all the things that show you how you are a medium. So if you see that, it doesn't depend necessarily of sensitivity of our organism, is our body, is a physical thing in mediumship. The faculty appears in different manners, and each medium has an aptitude. So you have a medium who can write. They can do psychography or automatic writing. Some mediums have trans-mediumship, some can hear, some can transport, some can do all sorts of things. I think the only medium who is known to have had all types of mediumship was Xavier. He could do transport, he could see, he could write, he could do everything. And including release ectoplasm, to have apparitions and everything, when his spiritual guide told him not to do that anymore, because his mission was writing. And he went on to write over 450 books, most of it. Just an incredible literature, spiritual literature that will last forever. It's really important work that he did. But most of us will have one or two, three maybe, types of mediumship. But also, it's not something that's fixed. We can change. The more we work, the more we have abilities to grow and progress. So we can change our mediumship as well. Another very important point is that we may not have any type of ostensive mediumship almost all of our lives. And when we come to like 56 years old, we can develop mediumship. And sometimes people who had it from birth will maybe stop having it. So it's, all the time there's something happening. It's not fixed. It's not nothing in Spiritism actually. It's written in stone, which is good. So I mean, I sort of go up, you know, talk a lot, but there's many types of mediums, and you see that it's a variety. There are physical mediums, sensitive, hearing, writing, seeing, trance and healing. And please go to the medium's book and then you can read. There was about 50 pages of the different types of mediumship. So I will tell you all of them now. So it's a faculty that appears in different manners, and each medium has an aptitude. So, but we develop others as well. So how does mediumship work? The roots of mediumship is based on a perispirit. By the way, how many people understand what a perispirit is? It's almost everyone. So we call perispirit in Spiritism, but he's also known as, Paul refers to it as the astral body or the spiritual body. In ancient Egypt was the Ka. So the perispirit is our spiritual body, because we have a physical body, we have a spiritual body, we have a spirit, and we have a mental body. And all together we have about 7. But our spirit, the physical body that we have, is a reflection of the spiritual body, if you see what I mean. So it's not outside-in, but it's inside out. It will reflect, yeah? So that's the perispirit, the physical, spiritual body. And which is this envelope that surrounds the physical body. Also, it's not encased. The perispirit is not encased in our body. It expands, it moves. And that's why we can sense things sometimes outside of our body. And it goes beyond our physical senses. If you see, you know, it's not like something that's inside, that's held there. The perispirit, and the perispirit, the spiritual body, is what helps the spirit to act on matter. So we can move, we can touch, we can do things with the will of our spirit, but the spirit could not do it. You know, like when you see these movies that they go through and things, but they cannot hold anything. I don't know if you see that film Ghost, when he's trying to pick things up and he can't. It's the perispirit helps the physical body, helps the spirit work with the spirit. It's the go-between the physical and the spiritual and the spirit. Yeah? Okay. So as sort of an example of what the spiritual body would be, the perispirit. Actually, the perispirit is a term coined by Kardec to explain the difference. Because it's like, if you have a fruit, you have that little, like...
layer.
Yes, it's just that covering of the fruit. That's called perisperm. So he said perispirit because it covers the spirit. So the most important of the physical part, because the perispirit will use a physical body through our brains and implements that we have. And the most important thing is the pineal gland, which also is known as the gland of mental life, according to André Luiz. It receives, codifies, and transmits astrophysical messages to several areas of our brain, so that we can be interpreted and understood, so we can express them physically. That's why we are all mediums, because all of us have a perispirit and we have a pineal gland. And it's very, very interesting, the pineal gland, because and important, in a sense that when André Luiz wrote the 3rd book of his collection, The Missionaries of Light, he talked about the pineal gland as releasing some kind of hormones, which was very, very important. And until he wrote that, the pineal gland was considered that would atrophy and lose its sense, because it controls our sexuality in children. And as we grow up, as we develop sexually, it crystallizes, and it becomes what they used to think was something that had no function anymore. And on the contrary, it's an incredible thing. And when he wrote this, it was 13 years before the scientists, Harvard, and the other scientist was talking about the pineal gland. So the pineal gland releases melatonin, serotonin, melatonin, and so many different hormones which controls practically all of our lives. The cycle of day and night, controls our dreams, controls practically everything. And it's an extremely important hormone in our brain. And one of the wonderful things about this is that now some doctors and scientists in Brazil have written what André Luiz wrote, and they have placed it, and now has been accepted as a scientific work in academia. So that's what Spiritism is becoming, part of the normal accepted science. So it's very important. There's just a point there for you. So as we were saying, o sense of mediumship, it depends on the constitution of a physical body and a pineal gland. Chico Xavier, in talking about mediumship, he said, I'm sorry that I'm reading this, I usually don't like, I get lost with the slides, but I think it's important because I don't want to miss any of his words. He said, in talking about mediumship, he said it's the essence in its affinity, a syntony, establishing the possibility of spiritual interchange between beings, that of identity with each other in the same level of emotion and thought. So we can, not only we can connect with one another, but we can also connect with the spirit world, with the spirits in the spiritual world. And the spiritual world is not somewhere there, it's around us, maybe vibrating in a different dimension. So, you know, it's not being placed in some other planet or anything. It's all around us, because we know that 96% of our universe is not seen by us. Okay, so let's go on. So the many symptoms that you have from mediumship. So if you know, when you sort of developing mediumship, when you start coming, you may have irritability. Everything irritates. Everything annoys. You have a bad mood. You go from being very happy to very sad, or really up there in the world, and then suddenly you feel like the world is against you, and that kind of thing. Also, you have body aches and pains, things that you think you have a heart attack or something. You have also, you sleep a lot, or don't sleep at all. You have anything makes you cry. You feel like crying all the time. Maybe some of you have recognized some of the symptoms because they are very common. And so this, when you have that, you know, there's something needs to be explained. If we don't treat this, they can become part of the pathology, and you can get quite sick, and really mentally and physically. So we're talking about education today, and they needed to study and to learn, because I think Charlie was mentioning that there are quite a lot of people in psychiatric hospitals who are bombarded with medicine and everything, and they have no physical illness at all. It's only mediumship that's not understood. So this is a very important point to learn. So also, another thing that's extremely important is our thoughts. And we have to really learn how to control them, how to really have positive thoughts, because they are base of communication. In mediumship, we communicate through our thoughts, the kind of ability. So the question is, am I an ostensive medium? Do I have mediumship? And Dr. Marlene Nobre, she said in her book about mediumship that if you ever suffered from heart palpitation, body tremors. Can anybody read that for me, please? Would anyone here like to read what's in there?
Yeah. Have you ever suffered heart palpitations, body tremors, exaggerated sleepiness, insomnia, night terrors, panic attacks without cause, irritated for no reason, feeling like crying without knowing why, body aches with no explanation?
Yes.
And even after being treated by a doctor, the symptoms still persist.
Okay. Anybody have any experience like that? So what she says is be aware, because everything points out to the fact that you are a medium. If you have those things, it can be physical, you can be really ill. And you go to the doctor, you are treated, and you feel all right. But if this is caused by mediumship, no treatment in the world will help. You will help, and then you get back again, and then you get ill again, and then you get back better, because it has a different kind of treatment that you need. So once you know that you have a mediumship, there is things you can do, learning and understanding. I think a very important point the medium book makes is that, and Kardec says, if you are not an ostensive medium, you will not become one. You can grow and you can train, and because in reality what we do, we educate our mediumship. We know the symptoms, so we start learning that this is mediumship, what can we do, how can we work. So we study, we learn, we discipline it, we have a way of working with this ability. And it can be quite easily done. It's not a difficult thing at all. But if you don't have an ostensive mediumship, no amount of training will make you become one. In England, they have these developing circles that people sit around and they keep trying to become mediums, but it doesn't really happen. So those in a mediumship group, for instance, it's you have the mediums, and in an ideal mediumship group, you would have the medium, the one who direct the group, and the ones who will talk to the spirits. Ideally, they shouldn't be an ostensive medium, because they can get connected with the spirits. So it's much easier if you don't get so attached or so connected to the spirits who are communicating. And also, they will sustain the group through their prayer and the positive thoughts, and they will help the medium. So even though you don't have an ostensive mediumship, you are a very important person in that group, because sometimes people feel that, oh no, I'm not a medium, I can't participate. No, it's extremely important. And I had an experience like this in our group. We had a person who used to come, Alec, his name was. He's in the spiritual world now. And he never received, he wasn't an ostensive medium. He would write things and he would say, this is not mine. It was an intuition, I just felt like writing. And then he went on holiday for 2 weeks. And I felt, when we were there working, as if we were a boat without anyone guiding it, We were sort of going with the wind. It was really strange. And I talked to somebody from the group and she felt the same thing. So when he came back, we felt all right again. It was like somebody was guiding the boat and we could really give ourselves into the work. And I told him that. I said, when I really miss when you're not there. You're so important in this group. And he said to me, oh, thank you so much for telling me this, because I always felt useless here. So it's important, if you're going to work in mediumship, even if you don't have an ostensive mediumship, you are extremely important for the group. I'd just like to point this out to you in case, this happens. So, also, mediumship will not make you ill, unless you have those causes. But once you sort that out, you start working in your mediumship, all those symptoms will go. You will not become sick or a new person because you're working in mediumship, unless you are sick already. Yeah? So the mediums are the interpreters of the spirits, according to the Spiritism. Because medium is the one that goes in between the two worlds. Yeah? Okay, so there are some dangers in mediumship. Like there is danger of anything that you do. If the person is doing it too long, for many hours, they can get tired. They get fatigued, and especially with physical manifestation, in which you use quite a lot of your ectoplasm to it, so you feel much more, you feel a little more tired. But normally, intellectually, you don't feel that much, no. So mediumship does not cause any physical, mental illness, and mediums can be as healthy as anyone. And if you feel fatigued or if you feel have a problem, then you can stop for a while. Actually, sometimes the spiritual guides even recommend the person to stop. So if you can suspend if you have personal difficulties, if a person is going through a very difficult time in their lives, that they cannot concentrate in the work, so there's no point for them to do it. They can wait for a bit, they can stay in the meeting, they can pray, but they don't have to work. You know, if you're ill, physically ill, you have an illness, you can't work, that's all right. But then we wouldn't work anywhere, even in a job, daily jobs. And pregnancy. And in pregnancy, it's not because it's harmful to the baby, it's not like that. It's just that sometimes when a woman is pregnant, she's got a lot of back pain, she doesn't feel comfortable sitting in the same position for a long time. Basically, is that it will not cause the baby to harm him in any way. So, if you're not properly educated, it can cause physical and mental problems. But say for instance, if you have no idea about chemistry, and you get box of things, you know, this chemistry box that you usually get, if you don't read the instructions, if you don't study, and you start putting things together, you can cause an explosion. You need to learn. Whatever we do in our daily lives, in our jobs, whatever we do, we have to learn, don't we? Don't we?
Yes.
So it means that if we're working in Mediumship, we have to also take time to study and learn. And in doing that as well, we can know the difference. Now, one of the dangers of mediumship is problems of obsession, fascination, and subjugation, which is in chapter 23 of the Medium's book, and explains quite well how mediums can become, you know, this. But there is always reasons that you can avoid this altogether. There are warnings for us. It doesn't necessarily mean that we all have to go through that. And it's just because there is one thing, and with everything in life as well, especially when someone shows a great, the great signs of being a really great medium with lots of abilities, there is a lot of flattery around them. There's a lot of people trying to, you know, they're always surrounded by people. And sometimes we can get a bit carried away with that and begin to think that we are the most important, forget that as mediums, the spirits work through us, it's not us. And these are the things that can cause those problems. So, we can recognize the good and bad influence will depend on us. And like in anything, in our daily lives, whatever our thoughts will bring to us the kind of people who will be around us. So it's the same thing in mediumship. And we must learn to discipline our thoughts and our actions. And all this have humility, charity, a will to help people. Because a good medium is not one who has more abilities than anybody else. Is the one who, even though he has one ability, he works with total love. The only intention he has is to help and to be the messenger of the good spirits, and he will attract good spirits because he's trying to help people. Another thing, let's see if sometimes I get carried away. Yeah. So one of the main things for a medium, is like says there. Could anybody read this for me? So you won't be bored with my voice all the time. Can someone read that for us, please?
All this can be overcome and transformed into something positive and good. Understanding through study, inner reform, constant vigilance, thinking good and loving thoughts, and working to help others in need. Extremely rewarding. When we dedicate ourselves to this wonderful work, we will have the company of the good spirits who will help us in our own needs.
So we see that we study, so we have understanding. We have a perfect understanding of what mediumship is and what role we as mediums have. We learn to think positive thoughts. We learn to be more charitable. We learn to be more tolerant and understanding, because inner reform is the most important thing for us. Every little thing that we do is important for us to grow, to become enlightened. So mediumship is one of the wonderful things that help us maybe to achieve this even quicker if we can. So when we do that, and we do it for love and for the desire to help, the good spirits will come next to us and they will help us. So when we're working, we're so busy working to help other people, they will help us sort out our problems, Okay, so one point that Spiritism emphasizes above everything else is that mediumship is not a profession. We don't work, we are not professional mediums. I don't know how it is here in Finland or in some of your countries, but in England we have professional mediums. We have people who give like shows. You come and you pay a lot of money and they will give you messages. And it's not saying they're bad mediums, they give good messages to people who help them. They help them, but they become very, they're well known and they get paid for that. So it's like a job. They don't work in another job. They work as a medium, they get paid for that. And in Spiritism, this is absolutely taboo. We do not work as a professional medium. Mediumship comes for us to help others, to help ourselves, but we have our own jobs, to pay our bills, to pay our rent, and to send our children to school. We have to go and work hard like everybody else. That's a little extra that we do for ourselves. Because, we talk a lot about helping other people, but in reality, the only people we're really helping is ourselves. Because we need a lot of help because we have left a really huge backlog behind us. And that's a way that we can pay quicker, whatever. It's not pay, that's not the right word. But we can overcome things that we've done in the past. So we base ourselves here in what Jesus said. He said, cure the lepers, help the wounded, and freely ye have received, freely give. Because you can be the best medium in the world, but if the spirits don't work with you, you don't work. And that's one of the problems of if you get paid for it. If you're giving people advice and things as a medium, and if the spirits are not there and you're getting paid, you're going to have to invent it. And it's not the spirits, it's you. And that's one of the dangers as well. Because it's like if you have a Stradivarius, this wonderful violin, But if you don't have someone to play it, it will not be played. And it's the same thing in mediumship. If the spirits don't work with us, we cannot be mediums. Yeah? So we do everything mediumship for free. And it's not for free, it's for us. We are building up this bank account that you have no idea how amazing it is. It's like one of those vaults in Harry Potter, you know, you call them full of gold. But good actions that we've done. So, actually there was a quote from Emmanuel. Would anybody like to read that? The quote from Emmanuel, please? Every incarnate person? Come on, Becca, you can read it.
Okay, every incarnate person is a medium, and we have an old debt to one another. Mediumship exists as a source of blessing if exercised with devotion and humility.
Well, you know, Emmanuel said better than everything I said before. Thank you. So, also, he said, consider mediumship as a powerful lever in the expansion of spiritism. We need to have mediumship in spiritism. Recognizing, however, that the spiritualist doctrine and mediumship form are essentially different from one another. Usually in spiritualist groups, you will have a mediumship group because it's extremely essential for the work. And you know, when we start having people coming to a group, there is a lot of problems, there is a lot of difficulties. And when you start a mediumship group, we will help everyone that comes. So that's why, but they're different work. Who would like to read that, please? Somebody?
Constructive mediumship is the tongue of fire of the Holy Spirit, edification of the soul. It requires discipline, education, effort, and perseverance. In order to grow, the Spirit cannot do without his own effort for self-betterment. Missionaries of the Light.
Yes, this is in Missionaries of Light, when the tutor Alexander is talking to Andrea Luiz and Hilario about mediumship. And what he's saying is that is the tongue of the Holy Spirit. He was maybe thinking about the day of the Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit, came to all the apostles, and they could speak in different languages, and they could be understood by everyone. So is that, but in order to be a very good medium, you need to have an effort, you need discipline, you need education, you need to learn about the process of mediumship, what it is, how you work it. And you also need to make an effort to be a better person, to be a little bit more patient, to be a bit more tolerant, to be a bit more charitable. And in one of the books of Andrea Luiz, there is a very interesting story. There was this lady. Do we have time? Sorry.
15 minutes.
Okay, very quick. So there is this lady, and she's an extremely good person. She's very good medium, and everybody respects her. She's very simple, but she's an excellent medium. And then some spirits were trying to test her. They create a lot of problem in her house with her family. But she's very patient and to try to have, you know, sort everything out and everything. So they couldn't break her by doing that. And then what they did, they sent someone, was a relative, he was incarnate, but he was a relative of one of the spirits who were trying to break this lady. So he sent her there, this person, and he was unemployed and he was in great financial difficulties. And he said, oh, you know, do you have a job for me? Because I'm unemployed. And so when she opened the door for him, you know, she felt sorry for him. And then he said, do you have a job? She said, well, you know, she didn't. And she didn't have that much money either. But then she said to him, look, I have a clock. It's not working very well. So maybe if you could have a look at this clock for me, you know, repair, I can give you something. So he was there, you know, doing the clock. Probably he didn't know what to do anyway, but he was doing it. So she gave him lunch, And when he left, she paid him. And the spirits who were there trying to break this were all there. They were there watching to see how her reaction, she would react. They thought she was going to lock the door and she would never find him, never help him at all. But she did. And this group who was trying to break this mediumship group actually started coming around and helping and changing themselves, because they felt that was true love there. She was as good in her home, in her daily lives, as she was in the spiritual center. And some of these lessons in André Luiz is really important, because like Paul the Apostle said, we live in a sea of witnesses. So we can read the books, we say beautiful words, but if we don't behave in accordance to what we say and preach, we have witnesses, And that is very important. You have to be a medium all the time. Oh no, you're not only a medium the day you go to the center, you are a medium all the time. And because of the way we behave, that's the people we will have with us. So that is very important to remember. So I had this picture here of Jesus, the medium of God. And if you remember the part of the gospel, when Jesus went with the apostle, I think he was with Peter, John, and James, I think. And he went to Mount Tabor, and they saw him transforming, and he became pure light. And he was talking to two spirits, which were Moses and the prophet Elias. So this is a very interesting part of the Gospels, one of the great examples of mediumship, of the transformation of Jesus. In Spiritism as well, as you said, we changed the perspective of what mediumship is, how can it be interpreted, because it's mediumship with Jesus. And we're not saying that, some people have real problem in talking about Jesus and Christianity. And I can understand, because Christianity hasn't done a very few things. And there are some Christians that are frightening, really. But when we talk about Jesus and mediumship with Jesus, we're talking about the love, the kindness, his humility, his love. What he said, love God and your neighbor as yourself. So he's telling us that we need to love ourselves first. Because we talk a lot about pride and selfishness, and sometimes we need to be a bit selfish to survive in the world. But humility, when he washed the apostles' feet, and Peter said to him, no, Master, I can't. He said, if you not allow me, you're not with me. And that's what he's talking about, being a Christian, being humble, being loving, looking to someone and seeing in that person a loving brother and sister, someone who may help you, and then you can help. We can help people with our prayers. If we go in a tube, in a bus, whatever, and you see people, they feel they're looking a bit down, send them a thought, please God, help them. They may be in trouble. They may be in pain. Help them. We can do that, and being Christian in that way, in behaving like a good person. Because there's people who don't even believe in God, but they have a Christian life. Because I think one of the things that really impresses me, Jesus said, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, we went to the kingdom of heaven, but those who do the will of my Father who is in heaven. So not saying you are a Christian and shouting to the world means that you are one, but the way you behave with your kindness. And also, sometimes within our own home, Emmanuel says, we are Samaritans out there in the world. And within our own homes, we're dictators. We have to start in our own home, to be the prophet in our own home, to be loving, to be kind, to our own people. Because, you know, you will not shout to your boss or whatever, but you come here, your husband asks you a question and you start shouting at him, or your child. So we have to be a Samaritan inside the house and outside. Live a true, have a humility. And it doesn't mean that we need to be put upon. Humility is not that. If someone is overstepping it, you can always say, excuse me, you're overstepping my space. You can be survivors like that. But we can have humility in our heart. And we can learn it. You know, it's not easy sometimes, but you can learn it. So, a devotion, abnegation to the service, work of charity, even reform, and dedication to help others, incarnate or discarnate. That's what, so I thought it was a lovely picture, isn't it? So I thought I would show you that. And this is the greatest medium, I think, ever. And you could not have met a more humble man. He was so loving. You know, when you came near him, you just want to touch him. It was an amazing thing, actually, because everyone went there and started putting his hands on him, because he was so kind, so loving, you know. And I think when in the Bible they tell the story of the woman who touched Jesus and she was healed because she had a problem. And with Chico was like that. Everyone came around him and they would have to touch him because he was such a good person, so loving. And you know, his example, we can be that person. You know, we admire others, but we can build it ourselves. So he was lovely. That's the picture I represent. Just to come to a close now, mediumship is a very serious commitment. If you're going to embark on it, you're going to have to work. You have to have the discipline to come to the meeting. You have to do the things that are necessary to do the work. You can say, oh, I don't feel like going today. I'm not going. I'm going to the cinema, or I don't feel. No, if you embark on that, you need to work. You have to go there. And sometimes, you know, you feel that, oh God, if you sleep, you don't want to go, because we have a lot of influences as well. And those days, when you make the effort and you go, is when you come out happiest, because then it's like something wonderful happened in the day. So, there is great joy. Sacrifices, you have to make a lot of sacrifices, you have to get out of yourself a lot, but you have no idea the joy that it brings. I remember in a group that we were, once we had a little girl, I think she must have been about 4 or 5 years old. She came to give a message. She came actually to pray, asking us to pray for her mother, because her mother could not be consoled of having lost her child. She cried all the time, and she called her mother, her daughter, all the time, so much so that this child was very disturbed in the spiritual world. So she came to our mediumship group to ask us to pray for her mother, that she would have a little more strength and a little more courage to support the loss, because she had gone when she had to go. She only had those few years to live. And we did. We put her in a healing book, and every week when we came to work, we say a prayer to this lady. And we ourselves, as we went home, you know, we did a gospel at home. We'd pray for this lady because she actually gave us the name. And we were praying for her. She was in our prayers, in a gospel in her home and everything. And something like 3 months later, this little girl came back to thank us for praying for her mother. I'm sorry, I still feel very emotional about that. But we left that day feeling as if we had won a treasure, because she came to thank us. One person was helped. And you know, in the Talmud they say, if you save one life, you save the world. And that's what mediumship work does for us. Thank you very much.